please, please, please check out Grief is Unsettling as Miss Marianne gives some really, really good practices for mindfulness where you can actually walk through with some of them with her. I love them because I told her there's some of them that I can even do with my small children. My son has sometimes emotional regulation issues. He's only 7, so he has some time to figure it out. But she gave some really good tips and really good strategies that you can do even in like a 5 or 10 minute moment to kind of regroup. Some of them might need more time for you to really calm yourself down. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mary Ann, and she's going to tell you all about who she is, what she does, and how she got into the grief space in general. Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi, Joy. Thanks so much for that lovely introduction.
Yes.
Just to tell you a little bit about myself for those who don't know me or haven't seen my presentation yet. My name is Marianne Udell. I'm the founder of Sheltering Tree. I'm a grief coach and consultant, and I work with both individuals, groups, and companies. I offer retreats occasionally, not as big as this one, but in person generally. Uh, I got into the grief space through personal experience. When I was 24, I was widowed. And it was much later when I decided to become a coach. It's a much longer story than I'm going to go into right now, but I knew that when my corporate job was ending, that I wanted to have more control, and I had a bigger purpose for being here in the world. And I knew that I didn't want anyone else to suffer the way I did when I was going through my personal grief. And I wanted to be there to be a support in some way. So that is how I came into the grief space.
And
Thanks.
I think a lot of us we suffer. I mean, nobody is exempt. Everybody has to deal with it, and so it's to know that at 24, some of us are just getting married, haven't even thought about marriage, and like a big part of your story happened before any of us got ourselves together. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for sharing that with us. I know it might be somebody watching who can relate to your situation. In fact, somebody at our grief cafe last night lost her husband really early on. Soon as her baby was 6 months old when he transitioned. And so I know this is going to be a blessing to her and anybody else that's watching. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. We also have Ms. Lynn Hanger, who is also a part of this panel today. And I'm excited about Lynn because she's going to teach you about Ayurveda tomorrow. So if you are in the chat, if you have heard of Ayurveda, let me know. I will say that I learned so much from Lynn's presentation. In fact, I learned twice because I watched it when she submitted it, but then I watched it again when I was making the worksheet for it. And I was like, oh my God, I just keep learning and learning. It's one of those things that you're going to want to watch a few times because it really shows how everything is connected. It's a holistic approach to grief healing. And I love, love, love how easily she's able to break it down. So without further ado, I would like to bring Lynn onto the call. Hi, Lynn.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, let me make you big on the screen. Tell us who you are and how you help people who are grieving.
So I'm an Ayurvedic life mastery coach. So Ayurveda is it's an ancient medical system, but it works with body, mind, and spirit. And so I got into it because of my own grief. When I was 22, I lost the love of my life and we hadn't married, so I love how the universe works and putting people together. So shortly after I lost him, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. We did have a little bit of time, but then she did eventually pass. And so early on, I suffered with a lot of PTSD symptoms and just complicated stuff and just the drama and trauma of life. And so Ayurveda and yoga was one of the things that helped me to regain my own health. So now that I'm healthy, I help others. So I primarily work with women. But the beautiful thing with Ayurveda and even yoga, we look at how it impacts every aspect of who we are. So physically, something's going to happen in our body when we're stuck in the feelings of grief or sadness or, all the different stages of grief, anger, denial, all those different things. but then it also gives you tangible tools to work with your emotions, work with the mind, because everything is housed in our physical body. So we look at if you can use your physical body to target the mind and the emotions, you can help work through the emotions. So I help women, whether they're grieving or just anything else in life, to help optimize their health. So whether they're stuck because of a mind or emotional thing, like in a case of grief, or if it's a physical thing. So we, that idea of what came first, the chicken or the egg, disease and disorder can happen on any level of being. So whether you're healing from grief or anything else, it's that holistic process of figuring out what you need to get well and how you move forward and nurture yourself to pretty much get well.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, ladies. Look, I promise you guys, when I schedule these panels, I have a little strategy, but it's more about availability than anything else. So the fact that you guys coincidentally are on here and you have suffered some of a similar loss, it's just to me, it makes me feel like God's hands is in this a little bit, and we're going to have a really good conversation. So let's just get right into it. Today, we're going to talk about grief is linear. As I always like to remind you, this is a open conversation. We would like for you, if you're watching, to engage. If you have any questions, if you need clarity or anything that one of us says, please let us know in the comments. For now, just say hi so I can say hi back. And let us know that you're watching with us live. Nobody commented that they knew about Ayurveda, so that's gonna be interesting. Please watch tomorrow her presentation. All right, so the first thing that I want to mention when we're talking about grief is not linear is what the 5 grief stages. We cannot talk about grief not being linear without talking about this famous approach to processing your grief, but how many of you know that that was designed for somebody who is facing their own terminal illness? Look it up. Look it up, and you will see that somebody they are facing death, they go through these stages. And so if you're not familiar with the stages, it's denial first, then anger. And imagine you just found out you could die. You don't want to believe it. You don't want even to talk about it. You just want to keep going on your regular life. I literally mentioned this show in one of our other lives of a firefighter who's facing cancer. And I'm not sure if it was terminal, but it's serious. Like he's in a higher stage. And he's like not telling anybody. His own son doesn't know. He's just going to work like everything is fine, because he needs time to process it himself and figure out how is that going to impact. He's the captain of the firefighters, so it's going to impact his team, his family, everybody. Then anger, because it's like, how dare you? I was just minding my own business. I was fine, and here I am having to deal with this. Like all of the things that I thought was important are no longer important because I have to prioritize what do I want to do before I leave this earth. Then there's bargaining. What if I do this? If I eat a little bit healthy now, is it going to help me later? Like what things can I do to give myself some more time? And then finally, depression. Well, not finally, because the last step is supposed to be acceptance. But now it's like I'm running out. I'm running out of time. I don't know what to do. And then that peace, hopefully somebody reaches where they're like, it is what it is. I did everything that I could do. And I hope that my legacy lives on. That is what it's supposed to look like. Raise your hand if that's not how it looks like for you, even if you're not, even if you're not facing that, you still feel these emotions. These are all valid parts of the process. And if you're in the grief and legacy Facebook community, you will see that it's like this little squiggly line of you go to this one and you come back to this one and then you stay here for a little while. And in reality, this could happen for years, right? It's not just, oh, this is a 6-month thing that you're going to just go through these things. And this could be years and years of you visiting each of these things back and forth. This morning, I boohoo cried because today's my little sister's birthday. And my status was, I wish you was here. I wish we could laugh together. I wish that we could go on trips. I have a jealousy of people who are able to do things with their sister, because my sister was just 11 months younger than me. We were like almost twins, like where we able to really live life alongside each other, and we were robbed of that. For no reason other than she choked and was found unresponsive in her bedroom. Literally, that's how she passed away. And so I just want to If you're watching this, we're talking later on how tragedy was not on my bingo card. Nobody signed up for this. Nobody thought that this was going to be their story or their person's story. Or even if you're not grieving a specific person, you could be grieving infertility. You could be grieving job loss. You could be grieving so many things that they're out there. We have to figure out how to get through these things, even though they're not linear. There is still a way for you to find peace. There is still a way for you to find balance. And that is what I would like for you ladies to chime in on. What are your thoughts about these stages in general, even though we know that they're not a straight path? So I'll let you go ahead and tell us what you think.
Well, I think part of what you said just now, Joy, about, it not being a straight line. And I think that, people do have that misconception because of, just latching on to what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had created and misinterpreting it. So I think that it's helpful to know all of these different emotions and know that there are things that you might experience through your grief journey, but it's never one and done. It's not, oh, I did that. It's more being aware of how you're really feeling. You can even start every day with, how am I feeling today and why? So you can be honest about the feelings that you're having. I know that there was a disbelief on my part. How could I still be feeling so bad? In fact, there was a boyfriend I had who questioned the fact that I still had a photo of my husband on the wall in my apartment. When we started dating, he said, you really should take that down. And I was so young. I doubted myself. And luckily, I didn't stay with him. And once I met my current husband, he, even on our first date, asked me about my first husband. He asked me to let him know what it was like being a widow. So he acknowledged that that was part of who I am. And I think that's the thing. Grief doesn't end. You learn how to live with it. So all of these different stages that you hear about are indicators of what you might experience. So don't be surprised if you feel a little depressed. In fact, this is the month that my husband died. So I know that during the month of September, even 40 years later, I still feel a little blue. Your body doesn't forget. And I'm sure that Lynn can probably talk a little bit more about that. But I give her a chance to share some of what she wants to say.
Yeah, I love that. And I think normalizing, it's not a linear path, but then we might not feel all the same things to the same degrees as somebody else. I think we all have different personality types. Through Ayurveda, we look at it through the elements. So we're all going to have a different way. One of the things that if we don't, there's a saying, in the body world and in Ayurveda, you can't heal what you don't feel. And so one of my opportunities to heal came in facing it, because a lot of what I did to cope was push things down, so I stayed in denial a long time, and then it's like years can go by and you're still feeling things, but our bodies remember everything. And there's so much research coming out in the trauma world that our cells remember. And so if we don't have that presence and that embodiment of what's going on in the moment, whatever the feeling is, whatever time, no matter how much time has gone by, then we don't really feel, because we're not fully present to process it. And some of the research shows in our brain, whether it's a stress, a trauma, a loss, it kind of dysregulates our nervous system and we go into that fight or flight response. And so that's the whole goal of a lot of the somatic therapies, whether you're doing yoga-based therapies, all of the restorative body stuff in Ayurveda, energy therapies, it's to get that sense of safety back into the nervous system. Because when you lose someone you love, if we look at it in Ayurveda, you're losing a piece of earth. So it creates so much uncertainty and so much change in your system that if you don't put all the pieces back together, then it's like the body has a way of healing, and it's not always like adaptive. Like if you break a bone, you can reset the bone and it heals. But if you don't reset it, you can have, where the bone will come together, but it won't be smooth. With the emotions, there's nothing to tangibly feel like, did you get your heart back in place? Whereas it's an ongoing thing. And so if you don't have body-based practices, if you don't have support, if you don't have community to help remind you it's okay to have 40 years go by and I'm still feeling this thing, when we love someone, it makes a strong impact in our nervous system. So honoring all the stages of what we're feeling when we're feeling it, that's part of the healing journey. Is we look at it in Ayurveda, if you don't heal in terms of, when we say healing, being present with your body, with what it needs at every single moment, your body will adapt, but then that's where toxins come up, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. And so breaking it down, even in the moment, what is the emotion you're feeling? I was dissociated, so I didn't know, was it anger? Was it guilt? Was it, I should have said this or that, And so breaking everything down, what am I feeling? And then what do I need to feel better? Not knowing, not meaning you always have to get out of the feeling that you're feeling, but knowing that emotions are temporary. But if we don't sit with them, that's when they linger in our system. And that's when, it can last longer and longer.
Yeah. There was something you said, Lynn, about the fact that you didn't feel. You can't heal what you don't feel. I think that's such an important thing. And that remembering that when you do feel, if you try to suppress it, it's just going to build, and you're going to become like a pressure cooker, and there'll be the volcano exploding or someone going postal. That's what a lot of that is, that the body needs to release. And whatever way you're able to do that, you want to facilitate it, whether it's through mindfulness, doing some journaling, or breathing, or doing yoga, or just sitting down in a warm tub and crying. That it's just, it's important to release the feelings. I mean, that's the very first step when I work with my clients. Allow the feelings.
And another thing that you said, Lynn, that stood out to me is like, even if you don't go through all of them, some people skip the stage. Like some people never feel the depression. And then people look at them like, you're not sad enough. Like, well, people create these projections of what they feel like grief. I just saw like a whole Facebook argument about you're not grieving right. And I'm like, how are you going to tell people how to show up on their Facebook page? You don't like what they're doing? Block them. Don't look at their page. And I go to think about my dad. Both my dad and my stepmom, they lost my sister. And I know how I processed it, but I watch them and I see that they're very different than me. My dad is like a free spirit. He is like a hippie. He will give you the shirt off of his back. He doesn't really express emotions in a way that is just so loud like I do. Like my emotions are loud. When I'm mad, I'm mad. When I'm happy, I'm happy. When I'm sad, I'm sad. But he is not like that. He a lot of things just fall off of him. And that's how he is always. That's how you're going to grieve too. If that's who you are as a person, you're going to show up that way. And people think you're going to turn into this person that you're not just because you're grieving. My stepmom, on the other hand, she's very witty. She's very funny. She makes a joke out of everything. And so I remember as a kid, I just didn't understand, because, you have an even different expectation of how mothers are supposed to grieve their child. And I know like in the beginning, obviously I saw how broken she was, but to see her carry it years and years later, and to see her unique way of honoring it, and to have the conversations that I've been able to have with her in the last few years, now that I'm adult, now that I'm a mother, it's just been really amazing to be able to learn that grief is not linear for anybody, right? It's not linear for you, but it's not linear for other people too. And I think that's important to bring up. So the next question that I have is, how can setbacks in the grief journey be transformed into opportunities for personal growth and resilience? Because some people feel like I'm past that part. It's so hard to get people who feel like they got their grief under control to come to the grief retreat, because they're like, I don't want to come in there and cry with y'all and go back to that stage that I was in. I'm like, nobody has ever left the grief retreat sadder than when they came. Nobody. They might still be a little bit sad because their circumstances have not changed. They have all of these triggers around them. They have all of these things that they need to process, and they know they need to do the work. They need to get up and they need to actually take some steps towards their healing. But at least they have people like you guys who have been through it, and they can see, okay, healing is real. Healing is actually possible. I could be crying this morning about my sister, and I could show up on this live and teach and talk and engage with people, because it's so important to me, and it's a part of my healing. It's a part of my purpose. And so I wanted to ask, I'll start with you first, Lynn. What is your advice, especially from the Ayurvedic standpoint of this ebb and flow, and then having to go back to a place that you thought you were done with?
I love that question, because the way we look at life is flow, like the seasons. So no matter what you do, the seasons are going to change. So just like the external world is going to change, we have these different phases and patterns. And once we can become aware of these patterns, then we normalize, okay, it's September, I'm going to feel a certain way. My trauma month is July. So I know actually I start feeling it in May. Things can be going great. And then all of a sudden, panic anxiety, and anxiety is something I work on anyway, outside of the grief, but my body will start telling me cues. My appetite will change, and I might get a little bit more irritable, so my body will give me cues. And it's like, here we are. It's been okay. It's 14 years now. And I used to look at it as, one day I'm going to heal. I'm going to get to the point. I'm going to do all the things, and I'm going to go read all the books, go see all the people, try all the things that everyone says, and I'll be healed, and I won't have to deal with it anymore. I can put it in a box and not have to deal with it. As I grew in my healing journey, I learned it's not about pushing those feelings away into a box. It's learning how to develop the skills in myself to sit there and hold myself when I'm having these really heavy feelings. And then I'm also a mother. So knowing, as I'm learning how to emotionally regulate myself and teach my kid, that it's like, okay, I just need to sit with this emotion, and what is this telling me? And instead of it being a setback and something that keeps me from it, because there were years where I couldn't move forward. I couldn't go work. I couldn't go do the things that I'm doing now. But the ability to sit with it and move through it, instead of it stopping me, it became another opportunity for me to learn how to love myself, nurture myself. And really, I think that's the biggest healing flex muscle that we have, is how can I feel what I'm feeling completely to really move through that process and move it through my system, and know it was a very deep love, and if you never lost a Brandon, you never lost a Brandon. If you never lost, whoever your love's names were, if you never lost a love that deep, you don't know. So I, as much as it's sad, I've gotten to the point in the healing journey where I have gratitude that I am so blessed to have had a love so deep that 14 years later, I could cry thinking about it, because it's still that real. And so knowing that the focus became moving from like trying to escape these feelings with, like you said earlier, Marianne, of just learning how to love yourself and nurture yourself, and know that part of me was lost in that. So I'm developing a new person, and who do I want to be now? I want to love myself and nurture myself, instead of what I did at the beginning, which was try to push it away. And then breakdowns come from that, because your body, the pressure cooker, explodes at a certain point. So I'm in that phase of learning to honor all the phases and surround myself with people and work that accept some days I might cry a little bit because I have emotions, and that's okay. And I'm still here, and I still know a lot, and I can still hold space for others, and I'm human too. And so I'm allowed to feel my emotions, and it's not a setback.
Exactly. And there's a curiosity that you need to develop, and just an acceptance that every single person experiences grief differently. There's no roadmap. You can have two siblings. I mean, Joy, just the way you described the way your father and stepmother dealt with your sister, there's no specific way that everybody is supposed to feel. So even taking the word setback out of your your mindset. That's not really a setback. It's just part of the process. It's just part of your process of what's happening, and getting a little bit curious. Oh, and it can be, even if you're feeling the same sort of emotion or feeling again, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be, maybe you're at a higher level in your journey right now. There's a deeper understanding. And then when you get curious about it, what is this telling me? What is it that triggered it? What is it I need to do for myself right now? And maybe it's tuning into your body. Maybe it's adjusting your diet. Maybe it's just going for a walk in nature. Maybe it's just sitting quietly and paying attention to what you need. That there's a fear of sitting quietly because the feelings come up. But the only way to get through it is to go through it. That there's nothing you can do to change what has happened. And that is key. That, Lynn, when you were talking about the broken bones before, even though the bone heals, if they do an x-ray, they can still tell that there was a broken bone. And you don't see the visible scars of grief, but they stay there too. You know, that you have those, the holes in your heart from, or the, we're all going to start crying. Just acknowledging that you're a feeling human being. It's how God designed us all, and we're supposed to feel. So pretending that you're not feeling anything, or even acknowledging, gee, I feel a little numb. I must be protecting myself in some way. And yeah.
I want to talk to the audience who's been sharing. I have been trying to take a walk every day since my husband passed. I went to it was like a workshop for kids who are in trouble, and they used the 4 S's, and I never heard of it. It says sleep, stretch, basically work out, salad, eat healthy, and sun. Those are the 4 S's. And I was like, that is amazing. Like, those are like definitely things that, when we make things into a thing, you learn it and you remember it. Because I thought I wasn't going to remember it. But look, that was a few days ago, and I remember those S's. I saw another meme that says, if you aren't feeling good, spend 20 minutes in nature. Unless you're busy, then spend an hour. Like, that was just so funny to me. But I now, from this type of approach, understand it. I think the old me, that would have went over my head. Like, spend an hour? What do you mean? But that's how much nature is healthy for you. So Karen, I love that you are still taking the time to do that, because that is something that is going to allow your body to really heal. It's a healing thing, and it's such a simple thing. It's a free thing that we're able to do. One last meme I saw was a guy in the park, and he was like looking around, and he was like, all of this piece is free. I don't have to pay for it. And it was a beautiful day. He was just in this nice park with a lawn, just beautifully mowed. And it just gives you a perspective that things, we get so caught up in things that are beyond our control that we forget about the things that we can do for ourselves to help regulate. And so I love that. I see Linda said doing the work is key, but not knowing how or where to start is also key. I'm learning to take it a second at a time and give myself grace. And she also said, not a setback, but part of the process. That's good. It's been a year for my sister, and last week over into this week was a struggle for me for some reason. And I was like, why am I back to where I started? So do you guys want to answer her before we move on to because the next part of the question is actually going to touch on this too. But before we get that, I know you guys are like, I already know what I want to say. So go ahead.
It goes back to what I said about still feeling during the month of September, I still feel my husband's loss, that there's the first anniversary of a death, or a birthday, or the first holidays, every holiday could still bring it up because it's a reminder that they're not here. So it's perfectly natural and normal. And it's not going back to the beginning, but it's more like what I was saying about it. It's just a, you're beyond the initial feeling of the grief, but the time of year does remind you of the event. So it's a trigger for you. And just once you have those things on your calendar, or you know to expect them, how do you want to honor your sister? What do you want to do to help yourself so that when the feeling does come up, you know that you can take care of yourself? You probably have something similar, Lynn. No.
Yeah, I love everything that you said. And I think as much as we focus on grief, the big thing is your own self-discovery of what this is for you, right? Whether how are you experiencing it through your feelings, whatever's coming up along your journey, and being able to have that compassion of knowing it doesn't have to logically make sense of why we feel what we feel, and all of those big milestones are going to trigger these feelings coming up. And one of the things that when I got to a certain level of just acceptance of I'm going to feel these things. I am a deep feeler to where it's a good thing when I keep it under control, and if I don't keep it under control, it can kind of take me over. So knowing that I'm a deep feeler, I know I need someone when I'm in those places to help show me the light, right? And so whether I'm getting myself resource, is it a friend that I can call? Is it a group of women I can connect with? Is it a therapist? Which I have all of those now. And I continually tried to resource myself, because at one point I thought, and this, as I learned along the way, it was a trauma response of this hyper independence. I should have it figured out by now. I can do it all by myself. And the more I do it myself, somehow I got this imaginary medal because of it. But then the more I really accepted where I was, I'm not weak because I have feelings, and because I'm sad because it's this time of year, and wrapping my mind around it's normal to cry, and you're not weak if you cry, and just normalizing these feelings and knowing that's okay, and I'm going to have those things. So I make sure to take that day off work. Sometimes I even make sure to give myself less work on, even for weeks, knowing that I don't know when it's going to come, but I know I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to lose my crap, because it happens, right? And nobody wants, like you said, Joy, nobody wants to come and rehash all the past, but it's going to come up if you don't address it and give yourself time to do it. And so knowing that that's totally okay, and more space you can give yourself to feel those feelings, it actually becomes less and less intense, and you can actually move through it to where now I know, I kind of look at it like on our phones, how we have a battery. I look at it like how distressed am I am versus how grateful I am. Because if I can get to feel my feelings and get to that place, it does move to a place of where the essence of it is love. We miss that love. We miss that connection. And so once we get fully through those feelings of, I feel this way because I love that person, and you realize I can still love that person. It's just in a different form, and I have to wrap my mind around this perspective. It just helps you deal with it. And then knowing whether it's retreats like this or spiritual teachers or time in nature, there's so many different therapies we can do to help us move through those feelings and know that it's going to happen. So just accept it's going to happen, and know what can you do to support yourself when it comes up.
When I host these retreats, I do a lot of time asking questions and talking to people in my life to make sure I know what that people need to hear. And one of my coworkers, she made a statement and was like, when the people who are in the beginning stage, that's the easy part. They have no idea how hard it is when it's been years and years and years later. And I looked at her and I said, if I would have came to you in your beginning stage and told you it was the easy part, you would have cursed me out. Like, you would have cursed me out. It's no easy part, but you have moved, you have matured, you have changed. And so you don't remember what it felt like back then. You just know how you feel right now. And I think that's another part of just the human brain. Like, I remember my 20-year-old self, but I don't remember how everything, like, I can't just close my eyes and be back like 13 again. I have to actually look at my statuses. Have you ever been surprised and you look at like a memory and you're like, I said that? What was I thinking? You know, we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much we change and how much we grow, because we're always stuck in the now. And then we take time worrying about the past and worrying about the future, but we don't take enough time to figure out the now, because that's the most important part. The most important part is figuring out the now. And so an example I want to give as I allude to this next question is, one of the things, because we don't only talk about grieving the death of a person, right? I talk a lot about grieving who I was before I became a mom. Even because I had my kids back to back, it was a lot of things that I wasn't able to pay attention to when my firstborn was turning one. Like, all of his milestones are very blurry because I was pregnant, I was sleep deprived, I was having another baby. It was so much going on that it took until baby number 4 for me to be able to slow down and savor the moments and pay attention to the things. But one of the things that I enjoyed while I was on maternity leave is watching the Ellen DeGeneres show. Like, I would watch it every day faithfully. That gave me like joy. I love the people she brought on there, the energy she had. And I can't sit through it, Ellen DeGeneres, even though it's old, I can't sit through a rerun now because that's just not the place that I'm in now. And it's okay. So the question that I have is, how can individuals manage feelings of defeat and frustration when coping mechanisms that once worked for them or that seem to work for others no longer seem effective in their grief process? Sometimes we think, well, I used to take a walk and I used to feel better at the end of my walk, and that's not working anymore. And I try to walk longer, I try to walk a different path, and I'm just using the walk as like a metaphor of all of the ways that we try to make it fit, like, you know, those puzzles where it's like I'm trying to make a square fit in a circle. Like, we're trying so hard to make this square fit in a circle, and it's like we're not that shape anymore. We're not that. And then the last thing to add context is, the older you get, now that I'm a mom, I have anxiety about me passing away or my child passing away, because I've experienced that. And it's like, I have to remind myself that just because I've seen it happen to other people doesn't mean I can't. I have to stop my life now to hover over my kids and do things that I wouldn't naturally do if I felt safe and I felt like life is going to take its natural course. So just keep those things into consideration. But I want to bring it to you, Marianne, about what to do. I love the mindfulness that you showed, because it was so many different ways, things that we can try that's new, that it might not have worked before, but it's going to work this time. And because sometimes we feel like we throw that away, it didn't work last time, the breathing exercise or whatever the case may be, but that might be actually what your body needs now. And I want to encourage people to lean into that.
This is, I think the very first thing that I would say is to forget defeat. I mean, take that word out of your vocabulary, because there is no defeat. It's just, oh, this is different. And what I said a little bit earlier about starting every day with, how am I feeling today and why? That, knowing why you feel a certain way helps you define, well, okay, what do I need? Or what is it that caused that? If I wake up angry, oh, I can remember I never resolved that argument from yesterday. I'm still pissed off about it. Or acknowledging what day it might be. But I think that sometimes it takes speaking with someone outside of yourself. Maybe you get to a point where you do need to talk to a friend. You need to talk to a community. You need to talk to a therapist or a coach or some sort of healer, that you trying different things when things that you did try before, or going back to something that didn't work before. Because I know for years, I said, oh, I need to meditate. I need to meditate. I need to meditate. And I tried, but I had an expectation of how I should be or how meditation should be. So there was pressure and expectation that, of how it should be. And the more I let go of the expectations, the more I released how it should look, the more I came to enjoy the stillness, the calm, the breath, that it's really being fully present with yourself and truthful. Don't allow anybody else to tell you how you should be or how you should be feeling, how you should be behaving. It's knowing what's good for you and being willing to try something different and listen to people who've walked the path.
I love all that. And one of the things that we look at in Ayurveda, pretty much the essence of the whole foundation is life is moving with the flow. Health is moving with the flow of life, and it's always changing. So our minds want certainty. We want it to always be this thing that we can count on, but the nature of life is that it's always going to move and shift. And so one of the things we do with Ayurveda is teaching you to know who you are and what your patterns are, because depending on your constitution, depending on the season, what worked at one time might not work at that time. What we're doing to help support in fall is different than what we're doing in winter, different than spring, different than summer. We need different things at different times. So part of it is knowing yourself, knowing your patterns. A big thing in habit evolution to help people change their behavior, no matter what it is they're working on, is tracking. And so that's one of the things I do. That's one of the things I suggest other people do. Track. So, you know, I eat a certain food, I have this result. I do this activity, I get this result. Yes, there is consistency we can build, but then knowing when things change, like the seasons, or as a woman, we have menstrual flow. So our hormones are going to be changing. As a mother, things happen in your life that you can't do anything about. There's always all this change. We learn how to navigate through that. And so part of the healing journey, whether it's through Ayurveda or any other modality, is learning this relationship with yourself. And so at any given moment, you know, like Marianne said, what do I need? Sometimes we don't know. So we need other people to help suggest stuff, or we start to build that relationship with our intuition. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the term glimmers. A lot of us have the term triggers, where we get triggered by something and it's a negative thing. There's a term called glimmers where it's good things. So whether, like you said, Joy, I get so much joy from watching the Ellen show, or me, it's like I get so much joy from drinking my warm drink in the morning, or so much joy from like my fuzzy hoodie. It's small, tiny things that we can feel joy and good about that start that feeling of good in our nervous system. Because just like we can practice a behavior, or we can practice a language and we learn it, we can also practice our emotions. So yes, we do have natural emotions that come up, and our nervous systems and our body and our cells work off patterns. So we can feel what we need to feel and move through it. And we can train positivity. We can train gratitude. We can train resilience. And that's part of holding on to these little anchors, to where they show gratitude, whether it's spirituality, and even in science, they've shown studies, gratitude really does raise our baseline happiness. So yes, it's a hard day and I'm crying, and I'm glad I'm not in chronic pain anymore, and I'm glad I have a warm bed, and I'm glad my kid is safe and healthy right here with me, and I'm glad, you know, it can go on and on. I can see one tiny blessing that we have, we forget when we go into what I call like the black hole. So it's like when something doesn't work, it's like, well, am I in a black hole? And most often, yes, because then you get wrapped up in your negativity and your storylines. But whatever you have as your anchor to help pull you out, whether it's a food-based thing, I really enjoy this food, or I really enjoy taking a warm bath, or a walk out in nature, or going to coffee with my friends, any little tiny anchor that we can hold. And then knowing, I kind of look at it's like on a roller coaster. Once you're on the down thing, there's nothing you can do, right? You're on the ride. Grief, I'm sorry, this has happened in your life. You're on the ride. So sometimes when things are kind of going off the rails, I just know, well, what are things I know will help, even if I don't feel the result right now, knowing that that will magnetize me to feel better. I don't want to get up and walk, but I'm going to make myself walk because I know this is good for me. I don't want to get up and eat, but I know I need to eat and put some fluids in my body. I don't want to talk to someone, but I need to have an accountability buddy or a therapist or someone check in on me, because my natural thing is to self-isolate. So once you start to become aware of who you are and your patterns, then you can help get people in your life to say, hey, we don't want you going down into the black hole. It's still a sunny day outside. Yes, you're sad. And let's go listen to a baby giggle, or let's go have a puppy party, or let's, whatever it is, because yes, we feel the bad things and we can feel good things too. And one final thing I wanted to share, I think our mindset is these valleys and these mountains. I'm going to feel really great, and then I'm feeling really bad, like they're two separate things. One perspective that's helped me is life as a railroad track. So while good things are happening, bad things can still be happening too. Yes, there's war and genocide and tragedy and loss going on all over the world. And there's really amazing healing things that are coming out, and people are healing, and people are recycling the trash, so looking at instead of either or, but that both and of, yes, I'm feeling this way, and there's still something to be grateful for. And I might not have the tool right now and I'm feeling frustrated, but this is also giving me information to keep moving forward.
Lynn, I want to make sure I'm not muted because, oh my freaking God, I want to be able to pause and write down all of the things like that. You just created like a bucket list of things that we can try and do and feel. And when you mentioned the glimmer, literally 2 days ago when we did our first panel, Erica, for the first time, I had never heard of a glimmer. So it's like, look at this, and I've been doing grief research for 3 years now, and this year is the first time I'm hearing it twice from the Grief is Love panel and now from this one. So I love that. And then the second thing is, I already know what next year's grief retreat theme is going to be. It's going to be called Don't Grieve Alone, and it's going to be different ways that you can have an accountability partner, a therapist, a spiritual coach, but literally who can walk the path with you intentionally. But then, because that's already set, I had decided last night, I was like, I know what the next year is going to be, and it's going to be grief and joy. And so all of those ends you just said, it just really resonated with me, like on a soul level, because what I always hear every year is everybody's scared of the word grief. Like nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants anything to do with it. It's even hard to get my own mom to watch these. I'm like, Mom, you've been messaging me all day. Did you watch one of my lives yesterday? And she was like, I'm gonna watch it. I just got things going on. Just send me the link. It's because of the word grief. That's literally because look at what we're doing right now. Like nothing here is triggering. This is inspiring. This is beautiful, but it's so hard to sell it to people. And I'm talking about for free. It's a free retreat, and it's so hard to get people to sign up. So I know that the next year I do need to do grief and joy, because I think that will give people the perspective, like grief and joy. Yes, that is what's happening here in the retreats that I host every year. So thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. And that now we're about to wrap up. I see one more comment. Let me see what you guys are saying. Love it. Can't wait. Yay, Karen. I got a new person who's going to be here next year. And so as we wrap up, please let everybody know how they can reach you, how they can work with you. But I'm going to have one final question, and you could just say your answer to that question and then close out. But the question is just, how should individuals redefine what healing means when their experience of grief doesn't follow a linear path? How, like, and it could be a story, an example, but just what would you say? For me, my goalway is grieving is healing. Somebody said that this week, and I was like, I'm taking that wherever I go. Like, grieving is healing. So if I have a heal retreat, is everybody going to show up? Because that's what I'm doing. This is a grief retreat. It's the same thing. So that's my takeaway. I am Joy Renique, a life story coach with Celebrate Legacy. And I hope that you guys continue on our next panel after these ladies tell us how they can work with you.
I love all that, Joy. And I feel so blessed and honored to be here with you, because it's one of these things, you feel so alone when you're in a sense of pain or grief, or you can be so isolated. And then with all the symptoms that come up, you do isolate yourself. So coming together with stuff like this, I think it's our perception of it's a natural thing. We want to avoid stuff that's going to cause us pain. And so we automatically associate grief with pain, which it is painful. But as we're figuring out here and talking about how it can move us to a deeper state, you know, and so when I look at what is healing, I think, like we said, how grief is different for everybody, healing is different for everyone. So in my personal journey, I didn't talk about what was going on. It was a traumatic loss. There was other life factors going on. So I didn't talk about it. I didn't feel it. And so for me, my journey is here. What I'm doing, sharing my story. Part of it is learning how to cry. I didn't know how to cry. I stuffed all my feelings my whole life. And then this traumatic thing happened. And it's like, I know I should be crying, but I don't know how. But learning how to connect with my emotions. So for me, it changes day to day, and it's redefining what do I need in each moment as I get to each new level. And so for me, it's that presence of, I know my triggers and I know my I don't want to say symptoms, but I know how I react when I'm not in a balanced state. And so I start to notice whether it's physical things in my body, I'm not sleeping well, I get a little snappy, you know, I feel anxiety, or it's like emotional things that come up to where I'll see a commercial and I'll start to cry. I'm like, all right, something's here, you know, so creating that space and that time in terms of my daily habits. So it's like my morning practice. So I'm committed in the mornings, this is what I'm doing, time for myself, and it can change every day. So setting up those commitments. I'm committed to working with a therapist, so I make my sessions. I was committed to get, because I'm a solo mom, because I was so isolated with everything, to get with a group of people. So I have 2 support groups that I go to. And so I know that's where I was deficient, so that's where I needed it. So for anybody who's going through grief, learning what do they need and how can they support themselves. So that's pretty much what I do with Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is really about, who are you through the lens of Ayurveda? How is everything showing up in your life? So when we say anger, anxiety, gas, inflammation, those are all symptoms, because we believe health and life, our natural state is to feel good, to feel connected, to motivated to do things. So if we're not feeling it, any of the negative things are symptoms. And so if anyone wants to work with me with Ayurveda, I have my little quiz on there. So we do your body type quiz. So once we know what your body type is, it gives us information on what are your natural strengths and weaknesses. So that gives us clues on what can help you, whether it's the physical aspect of what's happening to your body because of grief, or just any other life thing going on. So we have that quiz, and then I offer the free 30-minute body reading. So once you know your quiz, send me the results and we do a free reading and we talk about what's going on in your life and start to break down, how do we give you tangible tools to move forward and heal.
So great, Lynn. I'm going to have to go do your quiz. I think it's important to remember every person you see is dealing with something. You can't go through life without experiencing grief. And what you had said, Lynn, about talking about it more, I think that is part of what has helped me. You know, the more committed I am to speaking up, to encouraging conversation around grief, around loss, not just with individuals, but even in the workplace. You know, knowing, teaching managers how to deal with an employee when they're back from a bereavement, which is never long enough, but just personally remembering that whatever you're going through, somebody else might be feeling something similar. So if you're able to speak up, you help yourself by normalizing it, and it helps someone else by saying, oh, I'm not alone. I know I felt like I was all alone, that I was just in this bubble of pain for a long time. But the more I opened up about it, the more I was able to allow the feelings out. The more I cried a lot in the beginning, a whole lot. I'm one of those emotional people. And and I trained as an actress. And a lot of the training you go through is getting connected to your feelings. So that is part of what helped me with my healing, just connecting to, oh, letting it out, letting it out, letting it out, and saying, ah, it's the way the air smells after a storm, how fresh and clean. Your body can feel that way as well after the feeling. So on my website, Your Sheltering Tree, there's a link to schedule time with me. I offer everyone a free 30-minute get-to-know-you call so I can find out what's actually going on with you and to see if the work that I do, the way that I coach people, would be a fit. The free gift that I'm offering as part of this retreat is a list of the mindfulness techniques that you can try to help yourself. That's just one aspect of the work that I do because it takes time. It takes time to work through, and you need to let yourself have it.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, 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 thank you. And thank you one more time.